I texted Josh Hallmark afterwards and said, "Did you like it?" And he was like, "I loved it. I could have stayed there all day." And I was like,
I never saw him.
people. I didn't either.
Yeah, I ran
He
into
went in and we
Amanda.
never saw him again.
I wonder how long they stayed because I ran into Amanda once, and then I'm like, surely, because I kept, coming across you, and I'd come across anytime we separated, I always came back across our group, but I never came across
And yet we
their
were
group at all.
separating and being all over the place, and then we would still come back together. So yeah, I don't know. It was weird. I don't know how.
I made that comment to Josh because Josh had posted something about.
Ahoy, Nicole.
Are we
live?
Yeah, we're live.
Josh had posted something about it, and I wrote, I'm like, I don't know how we lost you. And he said back, he's like, I kept thinking, how have I not run into anybody?
Yeah. We just never saw him again. But he's going to be in Vegas. I won't be able to go, but he's going to Vegas for something else, like the first weekend of November, and I will be in Minneapolis. But I was like,
everybody.
He loved it, and I was so unsurprised because I feel like he's like a little. He has that
smarter than me. He didn't just go through me like, oh, cool pictures, and then walk out like I did.
I'm not saying that at all. You loved it too, but I'm just saying that we are trying to recapture some sort of childhood wonder that like the brokenness in ourselves needs to try to get back.
Yeah, now that you made it sad, I don't. Yeah,
and I do mean that.
Nicole
everyone.
Johnson said she can't wait to see you in Minneapolis.
Ahoy, friends.
Hello.
Janet, I told Bob this.
Hi,
I'm gonna embarrass myself a little bit.
Okay.
I told Bob this, and Bob snickered at me. So when I started the live recording and said ahoy, friends, I knew in my head that there would be a response back.
Yeah.
Never dawned on me that it would be ahoy back at me.
Yeah.
Not once did
it sounded a bit confused, like,
yeah, not once did it dawn on me that it would be ahoy back at me when I said it. I don't know what I thought it would be, but
Melissa, all the way from Tasmania. That's where them devils be living. They got them and tigers out there.
Of course, everything's backwards, upside down and backwards. So we have to say yoha.
That was the very
Melissa, to you, I would like to say like.
Oh, is that the Tasmanian devil?
Is that the sound he makes?
Oh.
I knew who it was. I mean, I had the gentle clue of knowing that you were referring to Tasmania already. But...
I mean, you want me to act the whole thing? I can spin around. I can do it all.
All right. Well, I'm going to go home now.
Yeah, I'm glad you made it, Zach. Thanks for coming in.
That was fun.
Melissa, I want to visit Tasmania. I really want to go to Tasmania. I've been to New Zealand and I've been to mainland Australia, and I love them both very much.
First thing I did when I got to Fiji was flush the toilet. I wanted to see what happened. And it was just one of those super suction toilets that just went straight down. So it didn't fucking matter.
Why see the water go the other way?
Yeah, disappointing.
Did you? Well, I was trying to see. Oh, now it's coming in. Okay.
Did I what?
I don't know. The comments weren't loading, so I loaded up YouTube on the other screen to see if they were loading over there, but they caught up now, so I think we're good.
Kathy.
I got to take my boy.
So fun to see. Yeah.
I got to take my boy out to lunch yesterday. That was in the midst of all the Quentin was home for fall break. Yeah.
You have more than one boy, so I just was wondering.
Well, I thought that you listened to me and knew that my son was home from college this weekend.
I
guess
you were just absolutely was not listening. I was
too busy with your own bullshit.
Yeah. Yes.
Taz impression will make a great clip after the podcast.
Unfortunately, we are not recording yet. Tony, you're so right, but we had not pressed record.
Thank God.
It's lost to time.
What if that just became the closing? Like, I'm Bob Ruff, and I'm Janet Varney, and I'm Zach Weaver, and this has been Truth and Justice.
Like it appeals to me. It appeals to me.
But yeah, so he was home for fall break, but I was gone. We were in Dallas. So he spent the weekend with his mom. And then when I came home Sunday, him and Bella went out. Of course, they were like harassing me for money so they could go out to lunch and go thrifting on Sunday. So they went and did that.
Fun.
And we got home. I mean, it was after 11 when we got home on Sunday night. And then yesterday, I was super busy doing stuff, but then he had plans that evening, so I just took a break and took my son out to lunch, like a couple of adults.
Did you tell him about how everyone thinks he's a hero from your stand-up routine? I guess you probably already have told him.
Yeah, I had to walk through the whole thing. He's like, "What'd you say about me this time?" First, I mean,
that's so good.
That's how it went. And I told him, and he's like, "Did you anything new about me or still?" And I said, "Well, I definitely did the fuck 12 bit because that one is always fun." And then I told him about the new one that I did with that, and he's like, "Oh, you told him that? Like everything over here?" I'm like, "Yeah." Unfortunately, you know me. I told the whole story to get them to cheer for you, just to set up me calling you a name.
Yeah.
He's like, "Of
Also
course you did." Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He's thinking about doing some open mics in I guess there's one of the somewhere on campus they do open mics. And it's like the traditional open mic where it's like some people are doing comedy, some people are singing songs, some people are doing poetry. So he was thinking about trying that out because he had
Oh,
a good time.
cool.
And we told you that Zach and I took him to the open mic at the club here last year. Did I ever tell you
think you
that?
did tell me that.
Yeah. Yeah. It was just one of the years after right after he turned 18. I was going one night and I'm like, "You want to go with me?" And he was all excited. So I helped him write a 5-minute bit and he went on and did better
Wait,
than
that
both of
part
us.
does sound familiar somehow.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, the 5-minute bit. Yeah. Maybe I did.
Kelly, yes, I will. So I don't know when, but I should be able to get audio and video. I'm hoping video from everything, and all that stuff will be posted as bonus content on Patreon when we get it. Other than the live Friday follow-up, which will go out to the main feed on next Friday. Presuming that. Oh, I should. Well, I guess I was going to tell you to tell Brandon, but I guess I could just tell Brandon.
So the chores.
Yeah. I was just telling when I sent him this audio, like there's no need to super rush because by the time he starts editing tomorrow, I'll be on the road. So I'm going to be publishing this from hopefully a hotel in Nebraska on late tomorrow night or something like that. So
a hello from a hotel in Nebraska. Just that's all. Sounds like that.
Try to get good. Maybe a different beat.
Ooh, Emily wants to know how many times you cried during the trip.
Oh, I can't count. The Adnan panel was supposed to be informative and fun, and then Rabia walked into the room and I fucking lost it, and then I think pretty much everybody in there lost it. There was a pretty to me was like one of the highlights of my weekend. It was a pretty amazing moment when Rabia came in there. And there was a few here, but the Ed's panel was nothing but steady crying, I think, by everyone for an hour straight, with a few laughs mixed in. Is Janet frozen for everyone or just for us? Sarah Lib says thousands of crying at 8's panel. Janet, where'd you go? Janet. Can anybody? Okay, I'm looking on YouTube. It looks like we're still moving and she's not moving.
All right, I didn't touch anything.
Yeah, she's frozen.
Maybe she's doing a very good job of just sitting still.
She gone.
Oh, nope, she gone.
She's coming back, though. She's coming back, I hope.
I thought she was just doing a very good job.
How lucky is she, though, that when she freezes, she's like...
Oh, yeah, it's always
in a
like
perfect
beautiful
pose with a smile. Like, if it's me, I'd be like... frozen, just like that.
Yeah. Like, every picture of me...
It's funny. You know what, Schaefer? I thought the same thing. Because I could definitely see her when I'm in the middle of telling a story doing that as a bit.
Mm-hmm.
From Nebraska, and now I live in Kalamazoo. Good luck. It's so flat. Glad I got out. Carrington, I'm not. I will only be sleeping in Nebraska if all things go well. I'm heading to Colorado, so my plan for my stop is to make it at least to Omaha tomorrow night. She just says, "Uh-oh, uh-oh." See or hear me? You're completely... Uh-oh. She thinks she's still in the room?
She's not. She's not in the room. She's doing good, though.
My computer just did something I've never seen it do.
Oh.
So she's got to... hopefully she'll catch back up here pretty quick. I'm
tired, by the way.
Yeah, me too.
I'm preaching to the choir, but I'm tired. Tired. My back's tired.
Yeah. Also, part of my day yesterday too. So like, I had all this shit to do to get ready, and then like I woke up in the morning and it was like, oh my god, I have a pinched nerve in my back and my neck, and I'm like, of course, 2 days before I have to go on this hiking trip, I'm fucked up. So I like went. And I had a low tire.
Oh, I remember you saying that.
Yeah. So I was like, I like literally tried to go through my normal routine. I had my breakfast, dropped Parker off. I went to the gym and I was like, what the fuck are you doing? You don't have 2 hours to spend at the gym, or an hour and a half to spend at the gym. So I went straight to the tire shop, had them fix my tire, and then I just went to my chiropractor with no appointment. Usually it takes a while, and I just walked in like right when they open at 9. I was like, you ever get one of those like pinched sciatic nerves that takes your breath away? That's what it was. I was literally going, yeah. And I'm like, is there any chance you guys could squeeze me in? And they're like, yeah, just go back to room 3. So I went in and
that's good. I was supposed to tell you to go to the PO box and I forgot.
Oh, hopefully it's not perishable because I won't be back for 10 days.
My bad.
Did you bring the shirt skis?
I forgot.
I brought. Did you forget anything else? I brought your shirt.
Thank you.
Nicole wants to know what your shirt says.
My shirt says "Do your best." It's from my dear friend Gary, who passed away last year. But it says "Do your best." I try to wear this shirt at least once a week because it means a lot to me. It actually says "Do your best" backwards, so that you read it in the mirror.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
He passed away from colon cancer a year ago, and sucks. It's one of the best people I ever met in my life.
Carrington, I'm sure Omaha's great. I do not plan on visiting. My hope is to find a cheap hotel right next to the highway that I could pull in and well, tell me this, Carrington. Between Omaha and the northeast corner of Colorado, is there anywhere there just because what I always worry about them is, especially when you're traveling out west like that, is I can go for another hour and stop and get a hotel, and then it's like, oh, there's no civilization for the next several hours. There's nothing here. I just see Valerie told you to. So Valerie wanted you to tell me to go to the PO box, and you messed it up.
You know what? That's what I'm best at.
Yeah, Janet. By the way, update. She's changing computers right now.
We're okay.
Yeah, so she'll be, and then we'll get this thing started.
Dun, 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 dun.
Would you Northerners please take your temperatures back? You know what?
It's like 70-something degrees here
today. It was 78 here today.
Yeah,
it's hot here.
Hot.
So I don't know what your problem is, Kelly. It's hot as hell here. Yeah. It's a little spicy. Although, like I saw, it's going to get cold here this weekend. And then I looked at I've been watching Steamboat's Springs, Colorado's weather. And it's been in like the 50s and stuff. And I'm like, oh man, that'd be fucking sweet. Then I looked, Saturday is like high of 22, low of 10. When I'm there camping and hunting, it's going to be pretty sweet. Is Bob a podcaster, fireman, teacher, quill farmer? What should we call Zach and Janet? Nice job, Sandra, remembering that whole string of nonsense they put together.
Well, Janet's way cooler than I am because I'm just a tattoo of fire, half-ass podcaster.
But you have to take all your careers. You were a t-shirt maker, a
professional 3-gunner.
Yeah.
T-shirt maker.
Yeah. Graphic designer, t-shirt maker, three-gun shooter, tattoo.
Yeah. I had a paper route for 2 days and I got fired from paper route.
How do you get fired from a paper route?
I didn't do the paper route either of the 2 days.
I swear to God, how do you get fired from a paper route? That's easy. I didn't do the paper route.
I had 2 full stacks of paper sitting in my garage.
Carrington, that is good information. They said to stop at Omaha, it will be nothing for 200 plus miles, and get gas when you see gas stations similar to up north with long stretches of. That is good advice. So I should just, if I don't want to go for another 3 or 4 hours, I should just sleep in Omaha.
Sleep in the Omaha.
Otherwise, I end up just driving straight. I mean, the smart thing for me to do, but I'm terrible at driving. I can't do tired driving. Like some people, like like buddies that I used to travel with stuff, they would always have to drive at night, even if I'm not tired. Like it gets like to what's my normal bedtime, and I'm like, can't keep my eyes open.
I'm done.
And then I'll go sit in the passenger seat, and I'm wide awake, and I'll chat with them all night. Put me in the driver's seat. Hopefully Janet's coming back sometime because I gotta take a squiz, and I don't want to leave you in here all by yourself.
Oh,
October is way too early for snow. Yeah, it's definitely gonna be snowing where I'm going. Any of you guys have questions for the follow-up that you want to ask? I'm sure we can make note of them because I don't think we got a whole lot. I didn't have time to look, but I don't think we got a whole lot of questions on the Facebook thread. So you guys, be on your A game and throw some questions at us. while we're going.
going.
Oh, I saw you. I did see you on Facebook, Nick, with that one. We got that one. We got it in the barrel. How come nobody ever asked me what my shirt says?
Because I'm a shirt guy.
Oh, my shirt has words.
My shirt game on point.
Although as I'm looking at the camera, I see why they're not asking what my shirt says, because it couldn't be more fucking clear exactly what my shirt says.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot of mystery there. The only good thing about snow is that I always make a big batch of cinnamon rolls. When it got cold last week before we left for Dallas, I made my chili. That was delicious.
You made chili?
Last week, yeah.
I want chili.
I ate it several days in a row, and then didn't eat it the day before the airplane for obvious
That was
reasons.
probably a good move.
Mm-hmm.
I was really figuring when you got up on the plane that you were going, and I was a little worried when you got up in the plane. Oh yeah. Oh, JV's not here to even tell that you fucked me on the plane.
Oh yeah. Oh, when she gets back, we'll.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't fuck. I gave you a seat.
Look, Kelly Zappa says my shirt game was fire all weekend.
Zach's shirt game was on fire. It really was. I want some chili. One comment about AIM. I don't remember profiles, but you could leave an away message. Yeah, if Nicole, if that doesn't, can you keep track of that, Zach? I wish there. Oh, we can start. Hang on, I started.
Started. I don't know what that means, but started.
It's just so on the top where it says live and started, so I can find it again later.
Listener Carolyn Peltier is the one that made my shirts for the weekend. So.
Oh, is that who made them?
Yep.
You never did tell me who made them.
I know. I was waiting to tell her, but I was going to tell everybody at the same time. Carolyn Peltier, and I asked her how to pronounce her last name so that I wasn't a jackass.
I just saw
because I was going to way over it.
I saw Chris's comment and I just thought it said "Go D-bags." I'm like, I'm going to block whoever said. Oh. D-bags. My bad, Chris.
D-bags. The Diamondbacks. I'll tell you what, being in Dallas, and there was a lot. I mean, obviously it's Dallas, but those Rangers fans were nuts when we were down there in that bar. We were in that one night
because when that sports ball game was on.
The sports ball.
Yep. Don't let me forget.
Oh, look, Carolyn's in here.
Have you written an intro?
Yeah.
Can you put a little note after the intro? Just put Kenny.
Kenny.
Do
you want me to say something or not?
Just remind me.
Are you back?
Yes.
Look who's late to the party.
Well.
Hey, I realized.
So were you still seeing the screen? Because you froze for a few minutes and then your whole screen was gone, and then you're like, "Am I frozen?" I was just picturing Viola. I'm like, "You're gone." I don't know what you're talking about.
Everything froze, and then it just sort of went away, and then the little colorful wheel just started spinning on my computer, and I couldn't move anything. So this is my other laptop. That one's fan is still on. It is like hot to the touch, and I think we found out that I cannot stream
for 10 hours straight.
Yeah, I'm hoping that it's not like I've never seen it do that before. I mean, what I'm describing sounds more normal than what I was experiencing, so I have no idea what's going on with that.
Yeah, on our end you were just frozen. But of course, did you change clothes too?
No. I just had to change. I changed cameras, so the lighting is different, and like the whole setup is different.
Oh, because it wasn't like it looked like a color of my shirt. It was like a blue shirt before, wasn't it?
It's a green shirt, but yeah, now
it's just darker.
Yeah, now it's a different camera.
JV, we came up with this while you were gone, and I forgot to tell you that Bob fucked me on the airplane, just like he said he was going.
Mile High Club.
Yeah, it was rough. The bathroom was not big enough.
Yeah,
but not that at all.
You tell her the truth while I pee real quick.
The truth is,
I did not do that.
Bob got fucking first class tickets and said,
"Yeah,
I got to pee so bad." We get up to the counter, and I'm on the upgrade list, and they didn't get seats assigned, so they had to go at the gate to get tickets. Right. And so Michelle was like stressing, like, "I hope we can get tickets together, whatever." And she walks up and she's like checking with them. She's like, "We need to get assigned seats. Can we get them together?" And she's like, "We're assigning seats right now." And I saw we were like number 2 and 3 on the free upgrade list. And I was like, "Listen, we would be happy to take a couple of first class seats, and they can have our seats, which happen to be together." And then we go sit down, and then 2 minutes later, they're like, "Will passengers Robert and Rebecca Ruff come up front?" I'm like, That lady was so funny though, because Michelle's back there. She's like, "We'll just take their seats." I'm like, "You can have our old seats," and the lady's like, "That's exactly what happened."
Hey, guess what? I was so worried about her fucking last name. I pronounced her first name wrong. It's Caroline, not Carolyn. It's Caroline.
Yeah, I'm gonna pee.
Caroline, dumbass. Caroline.
I wanted to get this done early, and look at us. It's not
sorry. That's the listener that made my shirts, Janet. Caroline.
Oh, nice. Shout out to
so
Caroline. The shirts were wonderful.
I was so worried about saying her last name right that I said
Caroline Peltier.
But it's not. It's Peltier. Because I asked her. Because I specifically asked her. I was like, "How do you pronounce your last name so that I fucking say it right?" And then I said her first name wrong because I'm a dipshit.
No, that's not dipshitty. That's being a human being.
Yeah, that's what happens to me. But yeah, I tried to talk the TSA lady to give me the first class seats instead of Bob. I was like, they said I could have their seats. You didn't secure them.
That's a good try. You have to at least try. Have to at least try.
Also,
I'm proud.
Mind you, this is one of the little planes. So Bob is like 4 seats ahead of me in first class, not really like that far. Like
within yelling and shaming's reach.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I did give him the finger on the plane, and he did take my headphones off my head. I look better like this.
That's a good one.
That's one of the shirts.
Was that worth it? I guess he did pee at least.
I hope. Well, I don't know if he did. I also hope he did, because we ain't gonna make.
Who's ready to play some podcasting?
Whew. Yeah, I am fried.
Yeah, me too. Let's get this shit. And then I'm going to have 2 hours of work after this still. And it's already 8:30 our time. Let's hit record. Yahtzee.
I have also hit record. God, I hope my other computer's okay. It's a little scary.
Is it an Apple?
Yeah.
He's taking it to Genius Bar. They'll fix it.
Do they serve drinks there?
1, 2, 3. Ready.
Brandon!
The podcast!
The podcast, Brandon!
We want it now!
I miss him. I miss him
yeah,
so
that was
much.
very fun family times with all of us.
It was. I guess you want me to talk, huh? All right. Ahoy, friends. Thank you for tuning into Truth and Justice. You are listening to the Friday follow-up for Season 14, The Reply Brief, The Prosecutors vs. Adnan, Part 2. This week, we discussed the timeline leading up to the day in question. This series continues to raise a lot of questions and thoughts, and continues to be a great exercise in critical thinking. I'm joined by Bob and Janet. We have a lot to discuss, but before we jump into that, do we have any housekeeping?
Yes, I got a text about half hour before we came on the air from Kenny Snow's wife that just wanted to share with me a picture of a diploma, because Kenny just graduated and got his high school, not a GED, but got a high school diploma.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and he's
way to go, Kenny.
Yeah, he is super proud.
That's so cool.
She said he's doing great, and he's got he's working, but he's got a really good lead on another new job, doing some training. I think she meant like boxing training. I think he's like working in a gym.
Cool.
But he's super excited. She said he's doing really well, and I think it was part of his parole was that he go to Narcotics Anonymous meetings. And she wanted to let me know, she's like, he's going to them and he's loving them and he's doing great. He's going to 2 to 3 a week. She just couldn't be happier about how well Kenny is doing, and I just want to share all that with you, share that with all of you guys. That Kenny's doing great. He got his diploma and he's thriving. And we got to spend an entire day with our other person that has gotten out with Ed Aites and his wife Kim at Obsessed Fest.
That was wonderful. That was absolutely amazing.
Yep. Yeah, and you guys,
it was really special.
You guys are going to get to hear from them next week, because we do have a live you guys remember I'm going to be out of town next week. So we're going to use the live follow-up that we did in Dallas for next week's follow-up. And I guess I'm spoiling the secret, but we had a little guest appearance by the Aiteses. why we were there.
I'm going to quickly talk about, because I kept meaning to say something about it. And this is like a little Easter egg for your ears, because I don't know if no one would be able to ever see this, even if there was video, but just a little teaser to if we ever get the Web of Death thing up, which is again a name that just doesn't really work for the conversation that we had and the entire whatever. It's a great name, doesn't really say Ed 8's case to me. But
Right.
but when we were up on stage with Kim and we were talking about when she and Ed, like when Ed said he wasn't sure if he was married anymore and stuff, Kim was just twisting her wedding ring, you know, how people do that.
Yeah.
Like, and as she was talking, she was just like twisting the ring, and just like she just kept touching her wedding ring, and it was so sweet. And just like,
Oh, I didn't even notice. I was
oh
sitting
my
right next
God,
to
it
her.
was so just
I looked
adorable.
over and saw the tear running down Kim's face, and that's all I saw because everything went. Of course, as you know, I was using my new.
Everything went blurry. I think already was blurry.
Yeah, I was wearing my new nifty multifocal contact lenses, which make it so you can see nothing at any distance ever, apparently. So everything was already blurry, but I could see the tear rolling down Kim's face, and I lost it.
Yeah.
So for those of you, I know people probably asked in the follow-up. If not, I know people were asking all over about those panels. The live follow-up panel, that will be our follow-up next week. And I'm trying to get video of the other stuff that we'll put up on Patreon for more bonus content for our patrons. And that would include the Web of Death panel, the Adnan panel, and the comedy hour that we did, right?
I'm excited for that.
Those are
Oh
the
my
three things
gosh,
we
you
did.
guys. I know some of you were there, but I'm so proud of my boys. They were so funny. I laughed and laughed and laughed. Everyone was dying. It was just, you
It was
guys
a
had
great
such
time.
great sets. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
Also, can I give a shout out to listener Caroline Peltier for those shirts?
Oh yeah, your shirt game was on point.
Those
Yeah.
shirts were awesome. I got
Those were
stopped
great.
all the time. Actually, what was awesome is I snuck the Bob Ruff stunt double shirt. No one knew I had it, and I put it on just for the comedy show. But I got stopped, I'm not kidding, probably 15 times from my hotel room to the panel room with people wanting to see that shirt. So
It
Yeah,
was
it was
great.
awesome.
It was so
That's great.
good.
Yeah, so much fun.
Oh, all right. So with that, I got to tell you guys, I'm in stress and excited mode because I'm leaving tomorrow for my Colorado trip that I've been telling you guys about for a year now.
Wait, you're leaving?
Yeah.
Oh, where are you going?
You sound like my students in high school. I'm like I've been for 2 months. I've been talking to them about this. You're gonna have a sub. I'm gonna be gone for this time. And then I was today talking to them, and I'm like, okay, so this is the project we're working on. These are the benchmarks you got to hit while I'm gone. I had the sub come in and introduce them to them, so they knew who they were dealing with all the time. They're like, Mr. Ruff, where are you going? I'm like, you guys don't listen to a word I say ever. None of them knew. None of them knew I was leaving. With that, I don't think we have another housekeeping other than no. I think that's it. So we have this. Obviously, you're on Friday. You're listening to this follow up, so that's normal. Sunday will be part 3 of the reply brief series, and then next Friday will be the live follow up from Obsess Fest. And then next Sunday, which is the day I'll actually be rolling back into town, is going to be part 4 of the Anon series, which is when we really, I think part 4 is where we get into the Nisha call and really start getting into like, to me, like the meat of the case, like episodes 4, 4.5, and 5 really, really dig deep into all that stuff. So all that stuff's coming up for the Patreon. I told you guys already on Patreon, but if you hadn't looked at the post and you're just listening to this, on that Sunday, November 5th, there's not going to be a new episode because I just ran out of time to get an extra one done before I left. So I may put that one out a little later that week so that you're not getting a week behind. And with that, I think that we're good to go. So Zach, I want to talk to you first because you have never heard Serial.
Absolutely not.
You did not listen to season 1.
I did not.
And so this case is all new to you. So for those of you listening, the plan was to get like as objective as an opinion as we can get. Zach is listening to the reply brief episode and then listening to the prosecutor's episode So he is someone who has no opinion on the case, can share his thoughts. So what are your thoughts?
This has been a very interesting exercise. I'll tell you that so far. Obviously, being only 2 parts in, we're not into any craziness yet.
Mm-hmm.
It is interesting to see the points that you're bringing out where they are kind of setting the stage for down the road at this point. Because, like I said, I'm some of these listeners way ahead of me. I'm only on part 2.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's coming up. But when you're talking about, I think by them saying this, they're kind of setting the plan in motion to see what's coming.
Mm-hmm.
But at the point that we're at now, it does seem like they're trying to be very unbiased.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's the way they're really presenting themselves. And as a listener just listening to their podcast, if I wouldn't have listened to the reply brief, I would have thought they were being genuine,
Mm-hmm.
that they were being honest, that they are being completely unbiased. Because at this point, it does feel like there are multiple times where they're talking about Adnan's religion, and they're like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but who hasn't? There's lots of religious kids that do things outside the religion. That doesn't mean they're not really, so there's a lot of points like that where they're like, they feel like they're being really unbiased.
Yeah.
Now, when you come back, I can see what you're saying, where they're like, well, they kind of misquoted this, and they're using this, like when they talk about Hayes' diary, where they said we took this out of Hayes' diary, and then they throw another point in that wasn't in Hayes' diary, that's kind of out there, an opinion, and then they throw another point in from Hayes' diary. Well, again, if I wouldn't have known that just by listening, it does seem like it's all cited from Hayes' diary.
I was going to ask you that because that was my impression. So when you knew to be watching out for that, did you get that? Did you have the same feeling I did, where it seems like everything came from the diary?
It does seem like it. I did get that impression that they were just reading points from a diary, and it just seemed like maybe that secondary point was just something like attached to that first point.
Yeah.
So that was really nice to hear you point it out. And it's, as I said in the intro, I mean, it's really about critical thinking. It's about breaking down these pieces for yourself and kind of hearing what they're saying, because they are very charming.
Yeah.
This episode, I mean, again, I don't know where they go from here, but this episode and the previous episode, they're very charming. They really sound like they want to be unbiased and want to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah. And as anybody who listened to the new intro that I put onto episode 1 of the reply brief, I kind of warned people, like, as you hear this, you're going to hear a change kind of in my tone too, because I was kind of with you at this. I was a little, you could probably tell I was a little irritated, because they start to just, they kind of give you that exactly what it's interesting to me that you had this kind of same experience, because that was kind of my read on it, where it's like, they're charming, they're coming across as unbiased, they're very confident, and you're feeling like, I can trust these people.
Yeah.
And then there's just these couple little tweaks that they make in this episode, where they they do just a few little things that may be insignificant, especially if you don't really know the case documents. But then, like, as we go down the road, then I'm like, I'm on episode 5, and I'm like, oh, that's why they did that, because now they're trying to twist it into this. So my tone changes along the way.
At this point, I mean, through part 2, I am definitely like on their side. I feel like I need to continue to listen. I'm ready for part 3. I'm ready to listen to part 3. I'm ready to see what they have to say. I'm ready to listen to part 4 and see what they have to say, because at this point, they've won me.
Yeah.
Without knowing what you have put out in the reply briefs, just on listening to their episode, I see why people are convinced. They've won me over. I see what's happening.
That's awesome to hear, because I'm anxious to see if you stay that way, or if that opinion shifts over time. So that this is going to be kind of a neat experience, I think, for all of us, because I think most of the people that are listening are pretty familiar with the case. So to hear someone that is not, to see how your opinion evolves over time, or if you stay that way. So, and Janet, you had to draw into the memory banks, because you're a patron. So you've been you're on the 9th episode already, and had to go back in time to remember what was said in episode 2.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard for me, because that does seem like it feels like a long time ago, that I started listening, and I'm familiar with the prosecutors. I mean, I had enjoyed stuff that they had, done in the past. It's been a while since I listened to them, but I did listen to their coverage. I did not. I don't continue doing that.
Yeah.
So I was not able to continue doing it.
Yeah.
But it was, but yeah, in the first couple, I did. I continue to not be totally sure how much of some of what you're experiencing is intentional by them, or accidental by them. That being said, the manipulation is real. I
Yeah.
just am not I just don't know if that's work they did or if they are passing on the manipulation that someone else did that they accepted as real or agree with. I don't know. I mean no disrespect. I don't know if because there's been some question about where the data came from and where the timeline came from and where some of the references came from or some of the theories came from that they tend to engender. I genuinely don't know. Like, I think it's possible that they really liked, Quillette article that came out a few months before they started, or a month or two before they started their coverage, and thought, "We agree with this," and that they're just sort of. I just don't know. So,
Yeah.
the leeway that I'm giving them, is like, I don't know if that's their manipulation or if they've just bought into someone else's previously worked on manipulation, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I don't know. And I guess I don't want to get too much into my thoughts on them right now, but I've definitely had people who are supporters of them. They're like, well, you're judging them based on,
Hey, listen, damn it, we're on part 2. Don't get too far ahead of me, guys.
yeah. Well, even with this, even here, you're judging them based on uh thinking that they would do the kind of research you do, but that's not the kind of show they have. So like they're just and they don't do deep dives or whatever. And I'm just like, I don't buy that, because they make a pretty massive deal about the like weeks and months they spent researching and all like I would, if they came out at the beginning and were like, hey guys, we just, we read some stuff, we haven't dug too deeply into this, but this is kind of our hot take, then I'd be fine with that. But when they presented it as, we've done a ton of research and we're going to present to you this super in-depth study of the case, then it's hard for me to give them a pass on that stuff. But with that, let's go ahead and get into the listener questions that we have. I know there wasn't a whole lot, because there's these first couple episodes don't bring out a whole lot of questions, because they're really just reading through the timeline. And to your point, Janet, this one, I think in the episode description, I have the link to the Reddit post. I'd be curious if any listeners followed that. But like the fourth time when I was like writing the episode, I like brought up that Reddit timeline. And that's when I was like, oh, like you can literally read, it's almost a script. You can read through the Reddit timeline, and that's everything they're doing. That Reddit timeline, the poster there definitely believes that Adnan is guilty, but they did a really good job of being pretty factual along the way of citing all of this stuff. So there's not a whole lot of opinion and stuff in there, and there's not a lot in dispute. I think I even said in this episode, like the first 50 minutes is like, it's just basically they're reading timeline stuff that there's really nothing to argue about. It's just in the last few minutes where things kind of went a little haywire.
Right, right. Okay. Well, we have a couple of different things to cover. Going back to, and I think this probably rang some familiar bells for a lot of folks, when you touch a little bit on the portion where there's this question about whether Adnan knew about Dawn, whether he was aware that she was dating someone else, who it was.
Yeah.
Jill H says, didn't Adnan say during Serial or at some other point that he was introduced to Dawn when he met him to look at Hayes' car? I thought he said then that they were a thing and that he liked him. Am I misremembering this? Says Jill. And you touched on that a little bit in the episode.
No, that's true. And to be clear, my whole I don't have a huge issue with them pointing out that in one of Adnan's interviews, he said, to at least from what the notes say, that he didn't know that Hay had a boyfriend. It's just kind of a weird take the way they get there, and that they keep harping on it, because like in a later episode, you'll hear like Brett say that like innocent people, well, like this happens all the time. That's why lawyers tell you not to talk, because an innocent person, if they start to feel like a suspect, oftentimes will start to be like, oh, well, I'm not going to say anything that's going to make them look at me even more. I don't know if Hay had a boyfriend. But yeah, your question, yeah, it was after, it was like right around Christmas time. Hayes' car broke down. Adnan and Don both met there. He met him, and kind of what I said in this episode is, it's so hard to tell when you don't have transcripts and you only have interview notes. There's going to be some question about the, whether Adnan, what he said about getting a ride, that I think there's probably some confusion there. But I think that Adnan knew there was somebody else, whether that's her, boyfriend, and whether he knew that someone else was Don. I don't know. There's some question there. That's one of those things to me that it's not super important. Like I want to know, how long does it take to drive from here to here, not whether,
Right.
So, but yes, that interaction did happen. I don't know if Adnan said that he knew that was Hayes' boyfriend at the time, but he did say that he met Don and that he seemed like a decent guy.
Okay. Okay, so Jill, that is your question. Moving on to, okay, so Emily T says, and we'll talk about this in a second, but do we have corroboration from other sources that Hay was wearing a short skirt in school that day? For some reason, I thought I remembered her being in a long skirt. And I think, unfortunately, that sort of takes us into spoiler territory about an upcoming reply brief of yours, right?
It does, but I think it needs to be said now, though, too,
Great.
because it's not a spoiler, like a big reveal. It's a correction that I make later. So
Well said.
I was always under the impression that, because I've seen the crime, I have the crime scene photos, and in the crime scene photos, Hayes' skirt is pulled up, way up, and so the way it looked to me, I've always thought that it was a short skirt, and I had never like seen or heard anything otherwise. Then in somebody sent me a screenshot in the HBO documentary. They had access to more files than I had ever been had access to, and they show the skirt, and it is actually a longer skirt, like probably like a cap, kind of a flowy cotton, like longer skirt that comes down to like the calves. So it was in fact. So I make that correction later on in another episode, which then definitely, because I really lean on Inez Butler's statement, and this one in a later episode, you heard me say that, well, I think we have to back off that a little bit, because it was actually a long skirt that she was wearing. So that was a mistake that I made in this episode. So that.
So does that change any opinion about that? So I know that statement was believed to be the 13th, that she was wearing the short skirt,
Yeah.
and she knew because she talked about the short skirt, but now we're thinking that maybe she doesn't.
Well, there's some weirdness too, because the other part of that is, what I was reading in that episode was her first interview with Baltimore City. So in this case, Hay went missing. She was supposed to go pick up her cousin at Campfield Learning Center, which is in Baltimore County. So it was a Baltimore County investigation in the missing persons investigation. Her body was found in Leakin Park, which is just over the line in Baltimore City, and then it became a Baltimore City investigation. So there's two different files there. And I was in this episode, which you heard me read, was her first interview with Baltimore City, and it's like she nailed it. She's wearing the short skirt. Of course, the skirt's long, but she said she had to pick up her cousin, and then she had to go to work. We know that day she had to pick up her cousin. She had to go to work. Then we find out that the skirt is longer, and then somebody else pointed out, but before she interviewed with Baltimore City, she interviewed with Baltimore County, and when she interviewed with Baltimore County, she said that there was a wrestling match. So the timeline goes, the first time she's interviewed, and also in another one. So you haven't heard about this yet, but for those of you listening that know this bit, there was like this rumor going around that maybe she had gone to California.
Okay.
That rumor it came from Don, and it came in much later into the investigation. And so in Inez's first statement to the county, she says that she had talked to Hay, and she said she might want to go to see her father in California. Well, her father doesn't live in California. It's her, like, her mom's ex-boyfriend lives in California. But it almost and then she also says she had a wrestling match that day. So it's hard to tell, like, was she confusing the days? But when you tie that in with her saying that Hay and it doesn't sound like Hay was close with a teacher named Hope Schaub. She was not close with Inez Butler that I'm aware of. But then Inez Butler later kind of comes out like as though they're really tight and they talk all the time and they have these in-depth conversations. So like in that interview, it's hard to tell, like, did she have the wrong day, or is she like inserting herself, like taking, I heard a rumor, and so now I'm saying, oh, I had that conversation with Hay and she told me about that. It's really, it definitely, and again, this I'm only, I don't want to spoil things, but I also don't want to let misinformation sit there for 3 weeks until you catch up.
Okay.
Right.
Uh, so what you'll hear later is me saying that we definitely have to chalk Inez's statement up to being unreliable, because she like she, other than the skirt length, she nails it on when the city interviews her.
Mhm.
But if you go back to when the county interviewed her, she says there's a wrestling match and she's going to California, which there wasn't. So and again, it's like, did she actually talk about a wrestling match that day, and so she has the wrong day, or because it was one of her co-manager on the wrestling team that is the one that originally sourced that,
Mhm.
and she just did have the wrong day. She's like, we had a wrestling match, she didn't show up that day. Did she hear that and be like, oh yeah, she had a wrestling match that day? So it's hard to tell. It's too bad, because it takes her, because so she says that, then she gets the details right about picking up her cousin going to work, and then at trial she's back to the wrestling match. The California thing's gone, but now the wrestling match is back at trial. One thing that a couple listeners mentioned about the skirt is, in the inventory of her car, there was a short skirt found in her car. And that led to quite a discussion on Facebook. And we get more in detail about this in a reply brief later. But it's an interesting thought. And I'm curious what some of you who wore skirts in school, especially if you had like really strict parents like Hay did, like, because we had a bunch of listeners on Facebook come and say, oh, I used to do that all the time. My mom, I would leave the house wearing whatever my parents thought was appropriate. Then I would change. And then before I would come home, I would change again. So there's a hypothesis out there that maybe she was wearing a short skirt, and then she like changed in her car, which then opens up an opportunity for when she gets attacked. If she's like pulled over somewhere and is, changing in her car,
Mhm.
and that could have created an opportunity somewhere. So I don't know that that's what happened, but it's interesting that there was a short skirt in her car.
So you brought up Hope Schwab, who is a teacher that Hay was friends with.
Yeah.
And in the prosecutors episode, they actually talk about her quite a bit. They talk about a conversation that Anand had with Hope about dating outside their religion.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like the prosecutors, while they kind of talked about it nonchalantly, they talked about it for quite a bit. And I feel like they were trying to lean on the fact that maybe Anand was hung up on Hay,
Mm-hmm.
which it very well could be. But I also kind of feel like he's talking about trying to date outside the religion. And I wonder how much of that could be just attributed to like, am I always going to have this problem?
Yeah.
Like, because I feel that as a kid, he's like, I just went through this relationship and my religion was the hang up. Is this always going to be how it is?
Yeah.
And I think he was asking for, that's how maybe I kind of took it. I don't know if that's really how it went. And I could see how they're saying that he could possibly be, hung up on Hay because of that. But I also wonder how much of it's just like, am I always just going to feel this way?
Yeah. I think it's probably a little bit of both. You know what I mean? Like, they're teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
We've all been through breakups in high school. They hurt and they're upsetting and they're hard to let go of. I probably wouldn't want somebody to put a microscope on how I handled every breakup in high school. But it seems like Hope Shaw was someone who both Hay and Adnan trusted enough to have that conversation, which is great, that they had somebody like that at the school. But I don't like in any case, and we see it a lot in wrongful conviction cases where like you get, especially if there's no real evidence, right? So then you always see where Luke's case, we just saw it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you start looking at, well, let's look at the things they do and the things they said, and let's try to analyze that. I just had a discussion with somebody on Facebook earlier this week, and it was about something about lending out his car to Jay or whatever. But they were saying how, I would never do that. Like this doesn't make sense to me. And they weren't like, they were just saying how from their perspective, this thing makes them feel that Adnan could be guilty because that's not what they would do. And I had said, and hopefully if that person's listening, like they didn't take offense to what I said. I wasn't like talking down to them. I was just saying, just be careful when you start making judgments based on what I would do.
Right.
Because there's always, like, in that thread, you would see people like, well, I did that all the time. So just because you wouldn't doesn't mean someone else would. And that's the territory that I always caution people to stay away from. Like, you can't make assumptions based on what, your experience is, or what you would do, or based on a conversation. Adnan obviously felt comfortable with her.
Has he confirmed that he did have that conversation?
I don't know.
So we also are just taking someone's word for it that they had that conversation, which is not dissimilar from taking Inez Butler's word that she had the conversation with Hay.
Right.
That I mean, it's just hard to know. It's hard to know why.
And the only difference between those two is, like, one to me is important because if the incident happened, then she watched, then she saw Hay leave the school alone, right? So
of course.
I'm much more interested in that. Where the one with Hope, like, even if it didn't happen, or it did happen, or where it was coming from, it doesn't, like I don't think that anybody can really make a judgment on what that means in regards to the case.
No, I agree with you. I'm just saying, as long as we're talking about how to take or not take statements, everything you're saying about, like, yes, the Inez situation is important to you for this very specific contextual evidentiary reason versus behavioral analysis, which I understand people get confused about, or because some people say, like, yeah, well, then what are we talking about when we're talking about behavioral analysis, when you're looking for statement analysis, or Jim Clementi's work, and the way all of those tools sort of, like, when does it make sense to apply them? When does it not make sense? I understand that people, get kind of lost in the weeds of the nuance of that, and have questions about that. That I think that makes a lot of sense to go, well, when does it matter how someone behaves?
Sure.
Doesn't someone work in something called behavioral analysis? And, so I get that.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. And for me, what I'm looking for is it going to make a difference, right? So like Adnan having this conversation with Hope Shop, that was, a month or so before this happened, before the murder happened. It's like, if I were to dedicate, like, a bunch of time to try to figure out, did the conversation happen and what does it mean? Do I think that there's enough there that could make that relevant to the murder? And to me, and I could certainly be wrong about that, like, to me, like, that one just doesn't. I don't see how. I didn't see anything. If I assume that Hope Schaub is telling the truth and that's exactly how the conversation went, I don't think it pushes, for me, doesn't push the envelope towards guilty or innocent in either direction.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's a matter of just kind of where to focus energy.
Yes, I agree.
For me.
And I think also kind of what you're saying, Zach, is that it's less about the behavior of the people in the stories and more about the choices and the behavior of the people telling these stories, as to why they are including the stories, right? So it's the sort of meta behavioral analysis of, like, why would you choose to tell that story but not to choose to tell this anecdote from someone else?
And I see now that I have completely missed the point. I'm glad you pointed that
out.
No, Janet, because that is
not necessarily.
Well, I'd like to a good conversation, but that's more. It was like,
right.
They had a good chunk of. I mean, it wasn't a huge chunk, but 4 or 5 minutes dedicated to this Hope interaction. That I even at the time said I don't really feel like that was anything.
Right. But they make a point to put it out there, and you'll see that, and that's kind of what I'm trying to do with this, is try to point those things out. Like, they make sure to tell you this,
right?
But they did, Inez, for example, right? So they made sure to tell you that she mentioned the wrestling match, so that we can now forget her. Yeah. So now that was the 5th, and now Inez doesn't matter. But they didn't tell you about the other interview where she said she had to pick up her cousin and then go to work. So there's to me, there's choice. And I hope what you guys are seeing when you're listening to this, what I'm trying to do is give you all of it. Like, yes, she said this at trial, and this is what she said in her interview, and this is what she said in her other interview, and then you can decide what all that means. I don't like the selectivity about only pulling, and we'll see that much more. I don't want to get ahead, but when we get into the track coach's statement, that's we definitely see much more of that coming.
Yeah, well, you talk about that in this episode for
Oh,
sure.
do I? Good. I can.
Yeah.
A little bit, not a lot, but a little
I just
bit.
listened to it. Yeah, you talk
Actually,
about
you do bring it up, but then you
Yeah.
say we're going to talk about this more.
That's what I thought. I get
Yeah.
into the
Right.
details of it later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, I'll just use another quick example because it was something that I observed where like I don't necessarily understand what the motive is for talking about it at length, but you bring it up, Bob, in the follow or in the reply brief, which is the conversation about the scene that happens at the dance, this
Yeah.
embarrassing scene, and just how you can take very little information in a story and sort of turn it into this event, and it's all interpretation, right? This is
Yeah.
my opinion, and it is total interpretation. But based on everything else I have seen, heard, and learned about Adnan's parents, the idea that they would make a scene is absurd to me. Like,
Yeah.
the idea they are so soft-spoken. They are
Mhm.
so, again, I'm speaking of their behavior, I'm speaking of but, like, once this story becomes introduced and I'm questioning, like, "Wait, why is this what is this supposed to mean, or what am I supposed to glean from this?" And because you kind of draw a circle around it and say, I think yes, it was an event, but it wasn't like the way that it's sort of being characterized. That was something that crossed my mind was like,
Yeah.
those are not parents who storm into a room and go, you and you, and want the attention focused on them for the scenario. I'm sure they were not excited to go to that. Again,
Yeah.
And
opinion,
I don't know.
total opinion, has nothing to do with anything. But I don't think that they were like excited about that trip to go to the school. I think they probably did not want to go there. But that's just my
And I
opinion.
don't know anything about the parents. Like I mean, you said you know this about the parents. I don't know anything about the parents. So just listening to the prosecutors, in my head there is a scene.
Right.
I mean, they portray it as a scene. In my head, it's a scene. I can honestly picture it. You know what I mean? I've seen parents make a scene, so
Yeah.
that's immediately I'm like, yep, that happened.
And
So-
to be fair, my take on that I think is new because this is the first time that I like went through and read all the statements about it, including the principal statement. And to be fair to Brett and Alice, I will say that like they weren't Neil Armstrong with calling it a scene. Like Serial called it a scene. Everybody like called it making a scene.
Okay.
The Reddit post they were reading from called it a scene, and it's one of those like I don't know if I use this term in the episode, but it's like this error carried through. Like somebody along the line, Sarah Koenig, characterized this as them making a big scene, and then everybody started calling it that. But then I'm reading that like, okay, the principal said they walked in, they made a circle around the outside of the gym. They sounds like they talked to him and said they were looking for Adnan. They found Adnan. They stepped outside and they were talking. And then Hay also went out and was talking with them. He's very clear to say they were talking. And the principal sees that they're now talking to Hay at the school too. And he went over and said, I can't allow you to talk to another student. And told Hay to go back inside. And they continued talking. And then you hear other friends like Debbie's statement where she says like I didn't even know it. I was there. I didn't even know what happened. So that's when I'm reading. I was like actually like trying to really get into the weeds and see what really went on there. I'm like, this is not a scene. It was they just came in. By all accounts, they came in quietly, stepped outside, and had a conversation that didn't involve any yelling. But again, to be fair, that like literally the Reddit post there they were reading from calls it a scene. Sarah Koenig called it a scene. It just that they just went along with the narrative that was already there. They didn't. I'm guessing they didn't go through and read all those statements.
Right. I want to just acknowledge this post. Some of these questions are great and absolutely befit the place that we are in these reply briefs. I feel like I say right 50% of the time.
Yeah.
The other 50%, it's just totally garbled. But again, I do know that we are going to be talking about this more. So I just want to give a big shout out to Dawn, who actually says this is from episode 1. So I'm sorry if this is not the right place, Dawn. I would say this is a perfect place for it. What do you theorize as the motivation for Jen to show up at the police station with a lawyer and tell them what Jay supposedly told her about Adnan killing Hay? And I prefaced all there was a huge preface on my part because I know that we are going to be talking about that a lot more in a future brief.
At future, so that literally what I'm editing right now. So
Got it.
the episode that's coming out on Sunday on the Patreon series, which is like episode it's like episode 10, I think, which is covering part 8 of the prosecutor's coverage.
Way to make this difficult.
Yeah, on myself. Is all about Jen and her interview and all that. So I don't want to get too much into it, but the short answer is, from where we're at right now, is, I mean, Jen has said it. She did that to help Jay. Now you can believe that Jay's telling the truth or he's lying. Either way, but in either instance, she went to the police to help Jay, to corroborate what. Well, it's a weird thing because supposedly, according to the official record, Jen tells the story and then Jay corroborates the story. If you actually look at the full record, it's pretty clear, and I break all this down in the episode I'm doing this week, that in actuality, Jay told the story and then Jen is corroborating the story. So you're right in the fact that it doesn't make sense for Jen to go do that unless she was telling the truth. And that's what the prosecutors are going to, that's how they're going to make you feel, is that it makes no sense for Jen just to go in all on her own and tell this story. And Zach doesn't even know what I'm talking about because...
No, I do, because I was in the 30 minutes or less panel.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you were there. Yeah.
I do know all of this.
Yeah. Good. Yeah.
Poor Zach. I mean, you are getting this in the weirdest bits and pieces.
Yeah, no kidding. Right.
I'm
Such
here for
a
it.
unique way of coming to understand this case. I don't think that there's anything more unique than
but
the weird order that you're going in.
Yeah, I know.
But I'll just say this. I'm like, this Sunday on the Patreon bonus here, which again, you will get this on the main feed later. But the patrons are going to get it on Sunday. I can dig into the weeds in this, but I'll just tell you this. It is super strange that Jen decided, after telling the police she knows nothing on the night of the 26th, to then turn around, and she says she talked to Jay that night. Talks to the police, I know nothing. Her words, she then talked to Jay. Then the next day she goes in and tells this whole story. That would be very strange unless that, this all actually happened and it's true, if Jay had not talked to the police yet. If Jay had already talked to the police, then it's a lot easier to wrap your brain around, but we'll talk about all that later.
Great. So more coming on that. I just want to acknowledge Holly and Kathy had some questions about the present day naming of, or allusion to, additional potential suspects, and the fact that it's pretty out there that neither one of them is Dawn. I don't want to get too deeply into Dawn. I don't think you do either. But there continue to be questions about the viability of the alibi and stuff like that, and folks wondering if there could be more going on behind the scenes or not, or just general questions about that based on a lot of the material that you talked about in your Serial Dynasty days.
Yeah, so I mean, my position then was based on the information we have at hand, that if I was looking at, if not Adnan, who do I think would be the suspect that's worth investigating further, I believe that was Don. Now there's new information coming out now. I'm not privy to it. I don't think anybody is. So like, for the people that were like, well, Bob accused Don and said Don. I've never said that. I've never said that Don did it. I've simply said that, like, with the stuff we have at that time, it looked like he needs to be investigated more. And he is a suspect in my mind, in my opinion. Now with the new rulings that have come out in court, 2 other suspects have been identified. They weren't named, but the internet seemed to figure out. There was enough context clues that the internet figured out pretty quickly who those 2 individuals are. And I don't know. I've never made a judgment. I'm still holding back my judgment to find out that, there's DNA that still needs to be tested, and hopefully we can find the answer and find out that, because as I've said all along, like, if Don is innocent, then the police did him a terrible disservice by not fully investigating him. So because they've left all these questions out there when he could, if he's innocent, he should have been able to just be cleared. And so if he's innocent, then they never cleared him properly like they should have. And if he's guilty, then of course they didn't investigate it fully and catch him. But I'm not going to pass judgment on any of that stuff or even make a prediction because I don't know. There's more evidence out there that we don't know what it is. So we just have to wait and see what that stuff is.
Sure. I want to acknowledge Tara's post. This is something that has come up a lot. I can't remember how deeply into it you've gotten so far in the briefs. I don't think very deeply, but I know, and I shout out to Emily, who technically probably wasn't supposed to respond with answers to the questions from the Facebook post, but you're right, Emily, and the answer was a good one. Tara says if Hay was killed in her vehicle after buying hot fries and apple juice, were those items found in her vehicle? If not, then she either didn't purchase them that day, which Inez had recalled that she did, or she stopped somewhere before going to pick up her cousin and removed them. I don't see Hay throwing garbage out her window, but I suppose this could also be an answer. And then Emily mentioned that Undisclosed had definitely dug into this a bit, and sounds like they weren't recovered, or part of them were recovered. Do you have details on that offhand, Bob?
I don't. I was hoping that the responder that you were just talking about did.
Emily says the hot fries and keys were never recovered, according to an Undisclosed episode. I think her stopping somewhere, ATM or gas, on her way to the daycare is the most likely scenario. And my memory was that, I thought I remembered that half of the items, it was like there was a juice box, but there wasn't evidence of hot fries or something like that. But again, that's me pulling from a murky memory. So
yeah, all I had from my murky memory was similar to yours, is that there was nothing. And then what I was trying to remember while you were asking that was the stomach contents, if there was ever anything identified. It seems like that was kind of undetermined. Like there was some stomach contents, but does that ring a bell to you? We'll get into all this later.
Yeah, I don't think that the stomach contents were any help to trying to figure out about the apple juice and the hot fries.
Hey, dumb question. What are hot fries? I mean, are they anything different than French fries?
Yeah, they're like a potato chip type thing. I think they are like the same material ingredients as potato chip, but they're shaped like fries.
Potato type material.
Yes. You could build a deck with it. So yeah, as far as like the most likely scenario, stopped at an ATM or got gas, I have 3 scenarios in my mind that are possibilities. One is that like she had stopped, at an ATM or stopped to get gas or whatever, was abducted there. Another new one is that maybe she pulled off somewhere on the way to Campfield to change her clothes, to get out of the long skirt into the short skirt into a long skirt, and could have been abducted there. And then the third one, that she went somewhere to meet someone, and that's where she was killed. And I think that the first one and the last one explain the missing fries, because so if she had just picked up these hot fries as she was leaving school to go, if she stopped for gas or an ATM or something like that, and again, this is if she did buy those things. I don't know if she like shoveled a whole bag in her face before, in the 5 minutes on her way before she got to a gas station, then threw them away. To me, that makes more sense that if she was going to meet someone, she had just bought these hot fries, and then she, say she pulls up and then walks into somebody's house or walks into a hotel or walks into whatever she's walking into, that she would take her bag of hot fries in with her.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So again, those are just 3 hypothetical scenarios that I have in my mind.
Glad some of our
Zach, not a dumb question. Lots of folks, I think I had to look it up way back in the day and was like, oh, it's kind of like hot Cheetos, but they're French fry shaped or something. Yeah. But no, that's a lot of people have no idea what that is. I think that's a regional thing, and no one ever talked about hot fries in California or Arizona when I was growing up. But and then this last one is from Dean. If someone admits to burying the body, he is just as complicit as committing the crime itself. How Jay was ever let to walk free shows how wrong the justice system is, if you believe he did. If you don't believe Jay did, then this to me is another point that Adnan is innocent. I don't know if we can say that burying the body is the same as committing the murder, Dean, but I totally hear what you're saying.
Well, it really depends on how the state you're in and how the prosecutor wants to charge. I can tell you that in Michigan, he could have been charged with accessory after the fact, or he could have been charged with murder, depending on how. Not that, and I don't know if the conviction would happen, but we have aiding and abetting laws in Michigan, which basically state if you participate in a crime in any way, then you are guilty of that crime. And I learned a lot about that because I was on a jury for an armed robbery, and the person that was on trial, there were several people, was like the driver. He, like he didn't have the gun, he didn't point a gun at anybody, he didn't steal stuff, he was the getaway driver, and they charged him with armed robbery. And they made very clear, the judge made very clear, the law is that, if you believe the armed robbery happened, and if you believe that he assisted in the armed robbery in any way, then he is guilty in Michigan of the armed robbery. I don't know how exactly that might fit in because it was after the fact, but I don't know. He could have been tried. To your point, it's pretty insane that he got no jail time at all for this. And it would have been one thing if that was like made very clear, like he took a plea deal, in exchange for your testimony you get probation,
right?
But instead they charged him. They waited several months to charge him and someone had asked a question about this, not on the follow-up thread but somewhere else, but they were confused by the fact that, and it wasn't from this episode but it's from a discussion we were having, that why Jay couldn't get an attorney until after he was charged. The answer is he could get an attorney anytime he wanted to, but Jay could not afford an attorney, and Jay did not tell his parents or anyone else that this was happening. So he was not entitled to an attorney, which means he could get one for free until after he was charged. So it was kind of a slick move by the prosecutor. They wanted to keep talking to him, so they just didn't formally charge him until I think September. So that way they kept talking to him. He didn't have a lawyer. He couldn't afford to go get a lawyer, and he couldn't get a lawyer appointed to him until after he was formally charged. So they waited to do that. And then they charged him, and they had him enter his plea in, but waited on sentencing until after I think I have those times right. Waited on the sentencing until after the trial. So he was able to go to trial and say he has already pled guilty and been convicted of accessory after the fact. He's going to jail. Everybody in the jury thought he's going to prison too. So it kind of makes him more credible. Like, he's got nothing to gain or nothing to lose here, when in fact he really did. Because it was because of his testimony that then the judge decided that I'm just going to give you probation. I'm not going to send you to jail. And he suspended the sentence.
Because I haven't listened ahead, and I haven't listened to the later prosecutors' coverage. Do they weigh in with their expertise on all of that behavior? I'd love to know if that's common and if it's no big deal. I find that very interesting. So
they do. I have, obviously, I haven't gotten to it yet in the reply briefs, but I'm going to, because they definitely, in a later episode, as you hear throughout the series, everything the state did is perfectly normal, and you're just being a silly goose if you think that anything that they did was strange.
All right. Well, I'll be interested to hear that experience-based conversation.
All right. Before we get out of here, we do have 2 questions from YouTube that we want to address. One comes from Nicole. It says, one comment about AIM. I don't remember profiles, but you could leave an away message. Maybe that's where Hay posted about Don.
Oh yeah, that's a really good point. We didn't have any questions about that. Thanks. I forgot I started that comment earlier. Yeah, I made a few people were, after I was talking about this, were like, "Oh, I totally remember your away message on AIM." And
yeah, I definitely remember that as well.
I did too, but there was 2 different things, and maybe they misspoke. But what they said was your profile. So like if I was looking, because oh my god, I'm dating myself. But because I was like 18 years old when AIM was becoming a thing, and I was in there, cruising the internet for hot chicks. I've been chatting with hot chicks online all day.
Not to be confused with hot fries.
Yeah, thank you for catching the reference.
Yep.
But that's what you would do, is you would like click on there and look at their profile, and it had all the stuff Hay wrote and all that stuff on there. Then there were also the away, and those were much more visible, as I remember. Like but to get to their profile, you had to go into their profile to look at it.
Yeah, I don't remember the profile being even a thing. So I'm guessing you're right that you had to work to get to it, because I don't remember that. I remember AIM and I remember the away messages.
Yeah.
And you would go check people's away messages, because most of us, at least my friends, would put stupid stuff on there because we thought it was funny.
Yeah, I always did the same thing. And maybe I'm misremembering. I don't know. And maybe they misspoke. Maybe what they meant by profile was the away message. But even more to the point that I was making was they just go on. And what drives me a little, and you'll hear it, it drives me a little bit crazy when they speak with so much certainty all the time for things that we can't know for certain. When we keep hearing these, it's always with a chuckle. He absolutely would know. That drives me crazy, because they presented no evidence that Adnan had an AIM account, that he used an AIM account, that anybody told him about the AIM account. So for a court officer to make that, because of this, we know 100% that he knew. Where's the evidence of that? And again, the whole thing about there's a few pet peeves of mine throughout this, like how badly they continue to harp on how close of friends Jay and Adnan are. Like, I don't know what you want from them. Jay says they weren't very close friends. Adnan says they weren't very close friends.
Jen says they weren't very close friends.
Yeah.
Stephanie said they weren't very close friends.
Yeah.
Adnan's family said they weren't very close friends. Like, I don't know what. There are just people who say that, where I don't know what they stand to gain from masking that. It just seems that one really shocked. That one shocked me, because I was like, I feel like without trying, I can come up with like 5 people.
Yeah.
Who
what I
are
can
not
tell you
connected to each other, who are like,
what I can tell you is that 100% of the people that were asked all said they weren't very close friends. But you know what? Fine. I'll concede they were actually best friends. What does that change? What, you know what I mean? It's such a weird, some of those things that they like really hone in on. And the only thing that I can come up with as to why they're honing in on them is because they're trying to make Adnan look dishonest. So
I think,
by saying that he's not, that he says he's not close friends with Jay, but he really is. That he says he didn't know that Hay had a boyfriend, but he really did. Things like that. I think the only thing I can come up with is that the intent in that is that here's Adnan lying, because I don't see how it's really relevant.
But you yourself made the point. I'm quoting you back to you now, but you yourself made the point that if they're close, that helps take us a little bit closer to why the heck he would ever ask someone he wasn't deeply close to help him bury a body.
Yeah, but even with that, so he did that in an 18-second phone conversation on the night before. You know what I mean? And then in a 5-second phone conversation is when he says to come get me. And then he's like, hey, track practice is over. I know we got this dead body in a trunk over there, but let's go to Christy's house. Let's go hang out, man. Let's go do that for a while. So it falls apart so quickly for me that it's hard to, if we're talking about behaviors like that.
Right. Well, this is one of those tough things where there are a lot of podcasts where people talk about cases, and they are not saying that they know everything, and they're sort of dancing between fact and opinion. And I'm sure that they would argue, hey, we're just doing that too.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And that's fine.
I don't know.
I do want to one last thing that we grabbed from YouTube, and then we need to get out of here.
Yeah, Emily T says you should see if Bob Motto would come on. He could give you some insight on how the defense attorney could have handled this case from the beginning.
Yeah, I think that, and I think Bob will do it. I'm speaking for him, but I know he listened to the prosecutor series. I don't know if he's going to be listening to ours, but and I think when he listened to the prosecutor series, I know that he seemed like he kind of he believed the same as they do, just based on, I'm only basing that on what I saw on Twitter. But I have a lot of respect for Bob, and I think he's a straight shooter, and I think he's an intellectually honest guy. So when we're done with the series, I'll absolutely reach out to Bob and see if he'd like to come on and discuss the case from a number of perspectives. One, like how he as a defense attorney would have handled things from the beginning, and also just kind of his take on the case, and if we can have that discussion. I kind of almost hope that he does think Adnan's guilty so that we can have, because I feel like I can have a very open and honest conversation with Bob. But I know he's super busy right now because they're doing the Steve Avery case, and he's literally he lives in Chicago, and he's like driving to Fort Wayne, Indiana for every one of the Delphi hearings. I was just listening today, and he went down there for the hearing that happened on Friday. But yeah, Emily, I will most certainly reach out to Bob when we wrap all this up, which is going to be quite a while from now. But when we do, I'll reach out to Bob and see if he wants to come on and talk about it, if he's got the time and the bandwidth to do that. Because I would love to hear his perspective on it. And with that, we need to wrap things up. Remember when we started, I was like, we should probably keep this short.
I know.
Here we are coming right in at an hour. But that's great. I'm super excited to do these follow-ups for the patrons who have heard this, 2 months of this series already, that they now get to go back and discuss them with a broader audience. And I'm loving this little experiment that we're doing with Zach over there.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yep. So we're going to continue on doing that, but don't forget there will be no live recording of the follow-up next week, because we already did a live recording this weekend, and that's what we'll be on next week. And with that, I think that we're going to go and wrap this thing up. And with that, I think we can go ahead and wrap this thing up. Don't forget that if you're just dying to get ahead, that the Patreon series at the $5 a month level, I'm dropping the 10th episode on that series this Sunday. So they are quite a ways ahead. So that's always an option for you. If you want to binge through and catch up, you could do the 1 month and then binge all the way up and then stop if you wanted to, or you could just hang out and just continue listening to them as they drop on the main feed. And with that, thank you so much, everybody, for listening, engaging, joining the YouTube, all of your chats and comments. We love you guys, and we will talk to you next week.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys.
All right, let's stop on
Brandon. Yes. Right at the end.
This is the hot fries convo happening in the YouTube. Real highlight for
me. It makes me feel better
of today. No, it really is. And I loved I'm gonna say Clydna. I could be so wrong about how to say your beautiful name. I'm so sorry if I'm saying it wrong, but I saw that a little moment where I'm gonna say it again, maybe wrong. Clydna said, this is kind of a fun example of how we all hear the same thing and interpret it totally differently. Like it's a small representation of, the sort of interpretation that we have of certain things.
Yeah, they kept saying hot fries, like she went to get hot fries, and I'm like, are those different than French fries? Like, what am I doing?
Yeah. Jenny, where is Abby here? What's happening? Is Abby close by? I love it. I think that's wonderful. I would just say, Abby, what's going on? I hope you're behaving yourself. I hope that you are taking care of whatever hybrid animals you may happen to have. We can't all have a polar bear dog. Some of us do. But I do want to remind you that I'm the avatar and you got to deal with it.
That's great. I got to watch with a ton of fans this weekend, Janet do, and I was like, I've had people before ask me to do like a video, and I'm always like super like, hey, you. Janet is masterful. I can tell it's not your first time doing those little cameo videos for people.
My first time.
I actually talked about that with a couple coworkers today, that I was like, it was really awesome to watch Janet just like turn it on.
Yeah.
Like it only happened a few times over the weekend. Like someone would come up, but she would just like, boom, turn it on. And it was fucking awesome.
Yeah. She's quite a treat. You know what? I like Brandon better though. Brandon's quite a character.
We all know that. Everyone knows that. I knew the second you met him that he would go up in stature, and I would just get kicked down a notch. I'm fine with it.
At least there was no hot tubs on this trip.
Yeah, for me and Brandon.
No hot tubs.
Sitting stargaze weirdly till 3:00 in the morning, drinking bourbon. We were sitting there.
God, makes me so happy.
We were playing other. Janet's long in bed. Brandon and I are drinking bourbon, half crocked, during a meteor shower, counting how many meteors we've seen, and somehow we made it into a contest. I've known the man for one day, and like, I think that's 11 for me. Damn it!
And then the next morning, you guys were both like, "I think I have a chemical burn from sitting in the chemicals the whole time."
Oh, all right, folks. I gotta let you go because I gotta clean up this audio before I send it to good old Brandon.
I need you to spend some real time packing up your stuff. I need to know that you are taking everything that you're supposed to have and that you're gonna be safe and warm up there in 11,000 feet.
Hey, Janet, before we go there, that listener put her name in there, the pronunciation of her name, and I know that you would love to see it because
Where is it?
you're good at that stuff.
Where?
Oh my, totally different.
Cleana?
Cleana?
Oh,
Cleana?
Cleana. It's Gaelic, but my people.
Gaelic is such a mystery to me. It's such a cool language, and it's really one of those examples like Welsh where I look at the letters and I'm like, I can't do this.
Oh, I just saw Caroline's post there, and it just reminded me. I was going to say it on the main show. I'll say it next time we're on. But for those of you that are in YouTube, so we had shirts made for Obsessed Fest that say "Ask me how I know Adnan's innocent," and I ordered way too many of them and brought a bunch of them back.
I actually brought them back, but that's fine.
You brought some of them back. I have a huge stack of them. We had them scattered through all the suitcases so we could stay under our weight limit. I was giving some away. But I'm gonna inventory when I get back from Colorado. I'm gonna inventory what we had and put those shirts up on our way. I'll probably do like a full merch order. If people like them and buy them out, then we'll probably do a full merch order of those shirts later. But stay tuned for that when we put those up on the website because I have them in stock here. And I think we're going to end.
Oh God, I forgot to ever stop recording. Sorry.
I was like, damn it. And oh wait, that's Brandon's problem.
It is his problem.
And
Also,
he can yell at
he
you.
knows when it ends, so he can stop listening whenever he wants.
2 clicks, just shut her off. And
That's right.
I still am very happy that I yelled Brandon as you were hitting the off button.
Yep.
It's in there.
All right. Can we please end this?
Yes, we can. Love you guys.
Love you.
Love you. Bye.
Love you, patrons. Love you, YouTubes.
Bye, guys.